And after a long hiatus, we are back for episode 2 of another wild podcast. Joining me is the newly married Jake Jensen. First off, congratulations, my man. Very happy for you and
Thank you.
Britt, Mrs. Jensen. That's so obviously for me, not as weird to say, but for you, how weird is that to hear like Mrs. Jake Jensen?
Yeah, you know what? I haven't heard that one yet, so that's pretty good. I thought it was weird. On some cards, you get like the old school kind of churchier people that'll be like Mister and God, what is it?
Like Mr. and Mrs. Jake Jensen?
Yes,
Yeah.
like you said, Brittany there, and it's just so weird because I look at it, I'm like, what? Like
Yeah.
that doesn't make any sense to
It's
me,
so odd.
But it feels really good. Like we were talking about before, I kind of feel like the same person, yet somehow 10 years older. Now I get to look forward to married life. So she's out deer hunting this weekend, so I get my first task as houseman this weekend. So
I like
uh,
it.
yeah, so it's a little empty, but we had a blast. It was awesome, perfect. Every cliche that you hear, it's true. Um, it goes by so quick, but it's a day and night I will never forget for sure.
Yeah, I know we were what about like a week ago now is when you officially were married, but I know on like that Wednesday we were like, "Hey, maybe we can try to record something and blah blah blah." My buddy Nick last year, he got married to his now wife Jessica, and like the week leading up to it, he goes, "Dude, every day." I'm like, "This can't get any more hectic." And then it does. So I when you said, "Yeah, we'll try to record something like a day or two before," I was like, we'll see. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna blow this guy up because I know he's got like a million things probably running. But no, I'm super glad to hear that that everything went well and it was a great night. Um, Maybe what wasn't so great of a night is the Wild last night. 4-0 loss to the Seattle Kraken. And before we started recording, we were talking about like how much each of us maybe watched it. I kind of watched just the extended highlights. You said I saw that first goal go over Fleury, and I was like, "Oh, it's one of those nights." Not the greatest performance for the Wild against a. It's only their second year in the league, but I want to say like a rebuilding. But it's hard to be rebuilding when you never had anything to begin with. So just a building Seattle Kraken franchise. They have those kind of young up and comers, but they just don't really have that. They don't have a Kirill Kaprizov. They don't have a Nikita Kucherov. They don't have that guy that you look to and you're like, that's their franchise. It's a lot of role players, it seems like, but not a team that should be beating the Wild 4-0 on the road. Like shutting out this Minnesota Wild team at home is pretty impressive for the Seattle Kraken and maybe says a lot about the type of play that the Minnesota Wild had last night.
Yeah, I think it says a lot about kind of where the Wild are at. It's this. They suck. The world's ending. Oh my God, they're on a 4-game heater here. Fleury's back to his best of form. He's found the fountain of youth, and then boom, the Seattle Kraken come to town and just annihilate him 4-0. And I mean, it's cliche, but that's hockey. Anything can happen, really. But you would have liked to see a little bit better of an effort there. Feel sorry for the people that bought a ticket after the team was on that heater for a bit there, thinking it's an easy dub versus the up and coming Seattle Kraken. But yeah, from what I saw, I mean, the young kids, especially Matty Beniers, that guy is going to be really good for a long time. Shane Wright still has a lot to go. I mean, he's a rookie, so I don't think too much should be judged of him um, on a franchise, team, or expansion team, I should say.
Yeah.
But they should have gotten a W there. They didn't, and we'll move on. But with no Wild hockey this weekend, that's probably going to sit with them for a while, I'm sure.
Yeah, and you mentioned that it's a 4-game or a 4-day stretch of following that loss before they head out to the West Coast. They take on the Kings first thing on Tuesday, I want to say it is. So possibly a chance to get a little revenge for that opening night fiasco. Not opening night, but the second game of the year fiasco where they dropped to Kevin Fiala's new squad. That's going to be interesting because I feel like the Kings, even last year, were better than advertised. And this year they've added a guy like Kevin Fiala, and they have like that Quentin Byfield who maybe was hurt at times last year, but he's second overall pick a couple years ago. So he's going to be up and coming and trying to really like get his foothold in the league. They're they for a team that had like that dynasty of like 5 years, they didn't really have that long of a rebuilding session. It seemed like they had a couple down years, and Drew Doughty was there, and Andre Kopitar and Jonathan Quick. They all powered through it, and now it's just like the Kings are kind of back, and they're back to maybe competing for a decent playoff spot once again this season. But we'll have to see how they go on that West Coast trip. Um,
Yeah,
weird about last night. If you look at expected goals, Seattle only had just over 2, Wild just under 2. So it's not like the Kraken really outplayed them. But what is, in your opinion, what's going on defensively, and maybe the lack of the ups and downs that we've seen for goaltending? Because the first 2 games or 2 appearances for Marc-Andre Fleury weren't the greatest. Then all of a sudden he turns around with a week where he goes 3-0 and gets the
mhm.
third star of the week in the NHL, and then we have something like we saw last night.
Yeah, well, just real quick, going back to the LA Kings, local Chisago County boy Blake Lazat's been heating up. I know he's got a
What a guy.
couple goals in a
St.
couple
Cloud State
games
Husky
here.
represent.
Yes, sir. So just had to shout out Blakey there real quick, as he'll be playing his hometown team again coming up. But I think defensively, the Wild they're just different, right? They're not that stingy team. They're more of a let's go score a bunch of goals and then 6-5 games. Like, it's not going to be
Yeah.
those 2-0 games that we're so used to seeing from Jacques Lemaire and Todd Richards and Mike Yeo and
Yeah.
all those guys. Even Bruce Boudreau, for that matter. I mean, they didn't score a ton of goals under him compared to what they're doing under Dean Evison now, and a lot of that's probably due to the star power that they have now. But I would say defensively, they got to be better. I mean, starting with the goaltender, the number one defenseman on the team, Fleury there's just a lot going on there. I would like to see him a little bit more calm. He makes those like big saves and you're like, holy, but he's done that his
Yeah.
entire career and he is what he is. So I shouldn't be too shocked by that. Everyone knows that he brings the flash and that's what he likes to do. So there's that. But I just got to say, I've been a fan of Dumba for a while, but wow, has his game tailed off. I've heard the hate for years now, and I've always been like, it's all right. He is what he is. He's a little bit over aggressive at times, but he's hurting the team a lot right now, I feel like.
Yeah.
And you saw that a couple games ago when he got absolutely just walked by Andreas Athanasiou um,
Mm-hmm.
for that goal, which was a beautiful goal.
Yeah.
Like anyone could have been the poster child for that. But I look at him and I'm like, this guy's making $6 million. He's got to be a lot better, especially in a
Yeah.
contract year. As
Mm-hmm.
you know, typically players like to have the best seasons of their career in contract years. So that's been shocking. But even guys like Jonas Brodin, like I think everyone needs to step it up a little bit. And we'll see going forward. But at this rate, they just got to keep scoring goals, I guess. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on the defensive structure there?
No, I don't think I could have said it any better. For years I've been very much in the because it seems like it's a two-sided coin for Matt Dumba. It's either you like him, you respect what he does, you appreciate kind of what he does, even though and embrace his flaws, or you're just like, why is this guy on the team? Trade him out, get a bag of pucks if you can. There's no middle ground. I've never met one person
Mhm.
that's like, yeah, he's all right. Whatever. I've been a Matt Dumba defender, I feel like, for
Mhm,
the past few years because I've seen his game mature.
mhm,
And even last season, I've seen times where maybe he commits a little too deep, but then he's able to back check and break up the play that he allowed to happen. So he's learned from his mistakes and grown as a player and just like a leader overall. And especially getting that assistant captain patch, that means something,
mhm.
especially when Bill Guerin's the one that hands that out to begin with. But um, this year has been a little, it's been that splash of water on the face, really waking me up of like, is this can't possibly be the guy that is, he's nearing 30 years old. He is in a contract year. What's going on, Matt? Where is the defensive like mindset? it's a lot of like you're committing at times, and I respect the offensive game that you bring to the table, but you're leaving the backside of things open way too much, and you're just hanging your defensive partner out to dry. You're hanging your goaltender out to dry at times, and and sometimes with the penalties. Wait, how many times have you seen a penalty get taken and immediately they get scored on the penalty kill, but then it's like, all right, who was in the box? Oh, it was Matt Dumba. And then you look at the replays, like he probably didn't need to hook that guy there. Just move your feet a little bit and stay with
Mhm.
him. And you can, it's, I'm not officially, I haven't officially turned the corner of I'm done with Matt
It's
Dumba.
it's trending that way though.
It is. The breeze has blown me that way for sure, and it'll be, if it continues like this, very interesting. Because on one hand, even the people that don't like him want him to do better, because if they are going to move him closer to the deadline, you want him playing better so you can get a better return.
Right.
But at the same time, those people don't want him playing too well to where they're like, we got to keep this guy and then sign him and extend him, even though we're strapped for cash, with
Right.
cap space for the next 3 years now. So it'll be a very interesting thing to keep under the microscope as the season progresses. But as of right now, we've got 11 games or so under our belts
Mhm.
for the Wild. It hasn't been the best showing. It hasn't been a week and a half to 2 weeks of hockey for Matt Dumba to write home about. I'm still in the mindset that this is a guy who, given what he's gone through in the league and his experiences and just being with the team for so long, maybe it's a conversation that he needs to happen behind the scenes between him and like a guy like Bill Guerin or the other captains in the locker room, like Foligno, who's been hurt, or a Spurgeon, or just like a self-reflective time over these next 4 days to really get his act together. But right now, it's been, if I had to assign a letter grade, it's like a D, maybe a D minus. It's been a rough start to the season for Matt Dumba.
Right. And the thing with him is, he, like you were saying, he could be playing bad D, but it's not like he's scoring goals or anything to help them that way as well.
Yeah,
Every time he takes a slap shot, it seems like it's going into someone's shins. But
because
yeah,
he's not a lockdown defenseman.
no,
You expect him to hop up in the play offensively, but when he's not even contributing on that facet,
right.
that's when I have a problem. It's
Yeah,
you're not doing your job. Like for goaltending, I like the goaltender to tend to the net. That's the old like joke saying thing. Defenseman, I've gotten leeway because the Norris Trophy has turned into, it's not the best defenseman, it's which defenseman has the most points and plays in that position. So
right.
if you're going to play offensively, I'm cool with that. But you got to at least contribute to that. And then, if it's a coin flip on the backside of whether you break up a pass or not, I'm fine with it. But you at least got to contribute, whether you're on the power play or it's setting up a pass and you're getting an assist every other night or something like that. You got to do something. I haven't seen that yet, and that's been my biggest issue with him.
Agreed. And it's not all on him, but that's
Mm-mm.
just it's just
No.
the kind of obvious talking point, I think,
Yeah.
between that. So
Um, maybe just to flip things on its head and go the other way of going from one guy who's been heavily criticized to one who I can't find a criticism of, Matt Boldy.
oh my
11,
God.
11 games without Kevin Fiala, 10 points, 6 goals, 4 assists. I mean, we talked about this on the first ep, and this was something that I know I heard a lot. I don't know about you heading into the season, but could he do it without Kevin Fiala?
Mhm.
I think this kid's gonna be just fine. I think he's gonna be just fine. 6 goals, and it's not like he's getting lucky. He's only got 6.3 expected goals on the season, according to MoneyPuck.com. So he's producing on a nightly basis, and it's
Mhm.
organic. Like he's making that happen himself, which is awesome to see.
Yeah, he really is. And it's funny because I've had this conversation with myself for a while now. And obviously, Kirill Kaprizov is the most talented player on
Mhm.
the Wild, I think. But I mean, at some point, I asked myself, I was like, is Matt Boldy the best player on the Wild? Like,
There's
is
there's
is
nights where he kind of looks the part, doesn't it?
yeah, because I mean, he's just all over the place. Defensively, he's making plays. Somehow, he's awesome at entering the zone. I don't know if you've noticed, like just his little like deeks here and there that he does just to get the puck deep, and then
Mhm.
he's back in there, and his shot is just incredible. That release is something special. but the way that he drives the play, and he looks like a center out there sometimes. He's just dictating the pace of the game offensively, and he's quick, he's manipulative, but he's just so smart. And I think that's the biggest thing. And if he keeps it going at this pace, he's going to be a superstar pretty quick here.
What was the it's so weird to go back and talk about this guy because of just maybe how much disdain the fan base had for him during his time running the club, but Paul Fenton, his initial comments when drafting Boldy 12th overall was like, you just gotta love when a guy comes up on stage that you just drafted, and your first thing to do is you turn your head up and you look up at him because he's so big in stature. It's like that's such a weird way to describe it, but he's totally right. Like and like you said, there's times where he does look like the best player on the team. And I think because he's able to do more all around stuff than maybe Krill does. Like we know what Krill does offensively is like that's like a perennial superstar. He's going to be up there offensively each year. But Boldy's maybe size and just like girth in terms of like how much strength he has on his body, he's able to get it done defensively as well. So they do both shine, maybe each in their own way at times, but it was the other night. Boldy breaks up that last ditch pass to the middle. It's a poke check that didn't quite, like,
Mhm.
a lot of guys maybe deflect that into their own goal for like an own goal late, but he deflects it off to the corner, killing the play in the final seconds to force overtime. I believe it was against the Blackhawks. Just
Yep.
it he makes those plays, and you're like, this guy looks like he's been in the league for 3, 4, 5 years. This is
Mhm.
his second year. He doesn't have a full season under his belt yet. So
Right.
he's making kind of like those veteran plays. And now we'll have to see. It's 11 games. I'm not going to judge, an 11 game stretch on this guy's going to keep this up and he's on an 82-point pace or something like that. But if we get like 20, 30 games in and he's still producing somewhat similar to what he's been doing thus far, the Wild are going to be in a real good position, not only for the next coming years, but especially once they relieve some of this cap penalty stuff that they have. They're going to be able to extend these guys, and there's not going to be that, okay, we got to juggle the budget and blah, blah, blah. And we got to keep Kalen Addison down here for a while. And Marco Rossi, you got to sit in the minors for no, we've got the money. You guys go get paid, and we're going to get you some more help. And now we're going to be a juggernaut.
Yeah, I absolutely love that too. And I think Boldy, I forget, by signing, did he burn the first year of his deal by playing at the end? Or he's in the second year of his deal, correct? But
Yeah,
did he sign a 2 or 3 year deal? I
I
think it
believe
was.
I thought he signed a 3 year, but then he burned the first year because they knew they wanted to get him up at some point. Because
Yeah.
once you eclipse, I want to say it's 9 games.
Let me fact check this real quick here.
Yeah, and I'll keep talking
Sure.
BS, and so you can either confirm or deny what I said. But I believe it's after 9 games is when that first year of like the contract burns. So that's why we saw Rossi last year for like 3 or 4 games, but then they didn't want to jinx it at all, so they sent him back down. Um,
Okay, so I'm on our lovely Cap Friendly, just one of the most awesome
one
sites
of my
for
favorite sites.
contracts. Like it's just so pleasing to look at, and like I love it. And but yeah, I could go on for that forever. But he's in the last year of his entry level deal. So
Oh
he did
no.
he did burn that. But this is perfect because as I was going to allude to, Boldy's trajectory is only going up. I'm completely on board with the Joel Eriksson Ek thing. Sign him to a max 8 year deal for whatever the cap hit is, because he's going to exceed that at some point.
Mhm.
If you can get him under, like, what is Joel making 5 mil even,
I think
like
it's
six, five
I
point
think it's
three,
yeah, it's something like 5 1/4 or 5 3/4. I think it's under 6, which is
five
incredible.
5.25, and like people at that point were like, oh, that might be a little much, and
That's a steal.
um but that's a steal now. And you look back at it, and Nathan McKinnon, that's how those kind of contracts come about. It's like you're taking a calculated risk. And
Mhm.
with Matt Boldy, you take that calculated risk 100 times out of 100. Rossi has a little bit of showing to do and whatnot. Still, he's still very young, coming off of a very serious life you know
Yeah.
threatening condition. But Matt Boldy, I don't know about you, I'm all on board by the end of this year, signing him to that max 8 year deal. If it's 6, 7, even 8, because he's going to exceed that I feel like coming up here.
Yeah, and that's what, and that's gonna be interesting to watch because I feel like, on one side of things, Bill Guerin's probably looking at the situation like, all right, I'll give it another like 15, 20 games, but if this kid keeps doing it,
Yeah.
let's lock him up.
Lock him
But
up.
then his agent on the other side of things is like, all right, well, we're gonna bring this thing right down to the finish line, and we're gonna get every penny that these guys can offer. And if they can't do it, we're gonna do a bridge deal. We're gonna do a 2-year deal, and then we're gonna get paid in 2 years when there's more money. And so it'll be weird to see because how much and that's the thing that you and I and a lot of people that maybe are watching or just like follow the team will never know how much maybe the agent persuades the player or how much some players maybe have the final say where they like, hey Jeff, I hear what you're saying and I know you want to get paid too because you are determined on what I'm making, but I really want to play for this team and I really like what
Right.
is going on. Or on the other side of things, you got like like Johnny Gaudreau. It's you go from Calgary to like, hey, back it up. We're going to Ohio, baby.
Yeah.
So it's so weird the dynamic sometimes because I feel like it all comes down to the player itself. Like some of these guys are maybe a little more prima donnas than anything, and maybe rightfully so. But other guys are like, hey, I'm just happy to be here and I like the team and I like the city. Let's just get this thing wrapped up so I don't have to think about it. I don't want to worry about it.
Yes, and little did we know we were gonna talk about a Matt Boldy contract extension on episode 2, but here we are. So I love it. I love it that we're kinda just going off on a little tangent here. So, I apologize, but I just had to get that out there.
No, you're good. You're good. Let's maybe talk the injuries that have racked up for this team because it seems like this road trip that they went on just totally wiped out this team. Ryan Hartman is gone. Jordan Greenway, I guess, is going to be making his return soon-ish. But we've seen a guy like Mason Shaw come up, and we've seen I can't remember his first name, but Fogarty come up, and he just got
Stephen
reassigned
Fogarty.
today. Yeah, Stephen Fogarty. Thank you. Um, First off, what are your thoughts? Because I know this is a hotbed for a topic on Twitter all the time, especially hockey Twitter, is just the stance on guys policing the game and fighting compared to the ref should just call something and break it up right away. Where do you sit on all of that? Because I think I'm very in the middle of I see why it happens and I understand a guy like Ryan Hartman wanting to make a guy pay for going after a guy like Marco Rossi who's 5'9", but also now you're hurt and now you're hurting the team because you're hurt. I'd rather you just be healthy and then, Rossi gets a cross check to the ribs twice a game and then we call it good.
Yeah, so your point or your kind of like idea here is Hartman, should he retaliate or should he not or go after
Mhm.
players because they hit star players and whatnot?
Yeah.
Um, I've never really enjoyed that. Personally, just because, like you said, first of all, they can get injured and something stupid can happen. But I think players at the NHL level, they know how to take care of themselves. They know how to do all that and be smart. And sure, it's nice to see someone stand up for you, but when are you doing it because you want to or you're hurting the team? And I always have had a put the team first kind of mentality inside of my head. um but I know personal feelings and personal issues come in the way, and Ryan Hartman is a guy that's never shied away from anything like that. So um I think it's based on the type of player, but I like everyone to stick up for themselves, kind of. That's just my
Yeah.
own kind of personal idea there. So I'm kind of right in the middle, I guess, with you there. I don't really have a strong opinion on it, just because it's hard to judge how you're going to react. Like, hey, that's my really good buddy, I'm going to step in
Yeah.
now. Or, oh, it's so and so, I don't really care about them too much, so I'm not going to risk injury or something like that. And you don't like to think that's what going through players' head, but it definitely is.
Mhm. Um, Going back to kind of what I was alluding to with the injuries right now, Jordan Greenway still technically, I guess, on the IR. Ryan Hartman on the IR, which that sounds like it's going to be more long term, is the verbiage I've heard, which is not good for just everything in terms of what he brings to the grittiness and maybe the penalty killing of this team, and also just what he did last year on the top line. We've seen him produce and be able to be like a pretty solid scoring guy that's making, less than what is it? Less than 2 mil, less than 3 mil.
I think it's less
Um,
than 3, yeah,
yeah. And then
2.7.
Marcus Foligno, he's day to day, along with Brandon Duhaime, who's day to day. Right off the bat, which of those four guys that I just mentioned do you feel like impacts the lineup the most not being there? Who carries maybe the biggest value that isn't in the lineup now night to night?
You're gonna have to repeat that because I'm looking at Cap Friendly. Ryan Hartman's making 1.7 for this year and next year.
It's
he's under 2,
it's
like
it's it's the best contract in hockey. It
Paul
really is.
Fenton.
Uh,
But yeah, so your point again. Sorry, I just had to.
no, that's why if we might have to make sure it's just Paul Fenton fan club.
Well,
So out of these out of these four guys, which one do you think is leaves the biggest hole in terms of like overall value to the lineup night to night? Jordan Greenway, Ryan Hartman, Marcus Foligno, Brandon Duhaime.
not Brandon Duhaime. So that's
Yeah,
kind of the easy
I
one there.
I feel bad just saying that, but it's not him. It's simply
Yeah.
not him.
I would probably say Moose. I think that's the biggest one there, just because he's got a letter on his jersey. He's a strong, voice. He kind of does it all, right? Like he chirps on the ice, he talks, he holds people accountable, he does things for himself, he can score, he plays defense, he plays like in all situations. So I would say, him. I think a guy like him, and maybe even you throw Jordan Greenway in there, who I haven't been the biggest fan of. In the past, but it sure seems like he's finally figured out how to use that frame that he has
Mhm.
and just be dirty and like I'm going in the corner of someone. I feel like I don't want to go into the corner with Greenway because I feel like he has like bad breath or he like hasn't showered in a couple weeks or something. So I think that has a strong place in a lineup, a guy like that. So I'd probably say Foligno is my top guy, and then you go to Greenway, then Hartman, and then Duhaime is unfortunately the easy target there. What about yourself?
I, Hartman's got to be my number one
Okay,
personally. As much as I hate to say Brandon Duhaime's last, he's just last.
he is. Yeah.
It's just because of the company that he's in right now.
Mhm.
But I think it's almost neck and neck for that top spot between Foligno and Hartman, because maybe despite his lackluster start and taking dumb penalties and just not producing maybe as much as he was last year, we are a year removed from him being a 65-point guy. This is a guy that scored 34 goals last season.
It's
So,
crazy.
right, maybe that was just he's a, what's the expression? A resident of circumstance or something like that, where he was on that top line between the maybe the best bromance in hockey right now, with Kirill and Zuccarello. But
Hmm.
I mean, hey, if you're throwing me or you on that line, we're probably putting up 20 points in the season no matter what. But
I think so. As long as
yeah,
I'll take a couple concussions or blows to get a 20-point season in the NHL.
at some point I'm throwing one of them a stretch pass and they're just doing the rest themselves. But
Got to get a second
um,
assist.
but no, and similar to what maybe Moose does, he kind of does the same thing, but more in a I feel like he's a little bit better offensively than Moose was, despite Foligno being really like exceeding what he probably should have done offensively last year. I just felt that was never sustainable, and who
Hmm.
knows if he could have kept it up this year if he was healthy. But um, you're spot on with Foligno being a guy who, he's got that kind of police badge on his chest
Yeah.
over the A, where if you're touching anybody, you got to watch out for him, because I mean, despite not connecting, every fan I feel like has that video of him Superman punching whoever it was last year on the
It was
Jets engraved in their
Brendan
mind.
Dillon, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Dylan, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, it's he personality wise, he's got it. He's a vocal leader in the locker room, and he kind of does a lot of the press stuff very well. So he just relates so well with the fans too. So maybe that adds to his argument. But if I had to rank it, probably Hartman first, Moose has a super close second. It's neck and neck. Maybe they're tied for first, but then Greenway third, Duhaime fourth.
Gotcha. Love it.
Yeah. Let's move on to maybe the next few games for this team, because like we had previously mentioned, they're going to be off for a few days before heading onto the road. And I'm
Mhm.
kind of just talking while I pull up the actual while I pull up the actual schedule here. But they're going to head to the Kings on Tuesday, and I hate. I've been dreading this since the start of the season. It's the West Coast swing where every game is either a 9 or 9:30 start. So that's awesome. But they'll be taking on the Kings Tuesday, and then the next night they'll go to Anaheim, and then on Friday they'll try to get some revenge against Seattle. So this is a quick 3-game stretch where it's two teams that have very easily, bent you over their knee and pulled your pants down and slapped you a couple times. So let's see how they can go. What's your ideal trip here? What's something that you think is realistic that you'd be satisfied with? I was saying you get at least a win, and if you could get 4 points from these 6 games, I would be happy. I would like just 2 outright wins, but if you win one and then you go to overtime the next 2 and you lose in a shootout or whatever, I'd be satisfied with 4 points over the next 3 games.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say anything other than that. I mean, obviously, you don't want to lose all 3. I think that's the easy thing, is just not to
Yeah.
go there and get nothing, especially with all the injuries. But I would say 5 points is probably what I'm looking for. At least 2 regular uh, or regulation wins. Sorry,
Yeah.
something popped up on my screen here, and I got distracted. Squirrel. But I think that
Was that an Up reference?
yeah, I love the movie Up. That's a goated movie
It
there.
really is.
But I would say, at least 2 regulation wins and then make a game go into OT. So you're scraping at least 5. Apparently they like to play on the road better these days anyways. So
Yeah.
so we'll see. But to be successful, you need at least 3 points to make it even. So
Okay.
at least a dub. At least a dub.
I know that we are a little late on this because they were released like a week and a half ago now or so. They're
Ooh.
basically right after the first one. We're going to get to it here in a second. So I want to at least preface that we're going to be talking about the reverse retros. But before we get to that, wrapping up our wild talk for the week. Is there a panic button at all out for you right now? Because I know the hype into this season was maybe this team is still going to make the playoffs and you shouldn't be worried. They're going to be still pretty competitive. And I think we've seen that at times, but they've played almost every style of hockey where it's they go out, they don't deserve a point and they play like it, or they go out, they don't deserve a point, but somehow they get a point, or they knock
Mhm.
they're absolutely dominating and somehow they don't get a point. And then, okay, they dominated this game and they win easily. They've played every style of game, I feel like.
Mhm.
Are you concerned at all with maybe the trajectory of this team having really no consistency? Because they can really come out and it's like, what mask are they putting on tonight?
I wouldn't say I'm concerned. It's more so frustrating. I feel like as a fan, I'm sure it's got to be absolutely frustrating in that locker room. But
Mhm.
just with guys like Matt Boldy saying you're gonna have games like these, like it just seems like a different feeling. Like they're not deflated, even though they're not where they want to be right now. So I'm not really hitting the panic button. The one concern that I do have, and it was my concern heading into the year, was the goaltending. It's not what it used to be in the past with even Cam Talbot, where he just kind of holds them together until they find their game and then they go and score on the other end. So I think Marc-Andre Fleury just I don't know, because he is what he is, right? You're not going to just
Yeah.
tell him to be a stay-at-home goalie, because that's just not who he is, and he's at the latter half of his career. The fear, I think, is the goaltending for me. If something happens to him, can Gustafsson do it? But Wallstedt is just waiting, and I feel like I'm in a waiting pattern for him to come up at some point. I don't know if that's this year. They've said that he's not going to come up. It'll probably be I forget who their goalie is in the minors, the Boston Bruins ex goalie with him, because Hunter Jones is an afterthought at this point. He's
Yeah.
in the ECHL, like once as like the goalie of the future. So that's interesting as well. But yeah, I would just say goaltending is the only panicky thing for me. Just because you got to stop pucks to score goals, as players like to say. You got to get pucks deep. Um, but but yeah, everything else is fine. I think 30 games in is when you kind of look at it and kind of evaluate everything that's happened.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to do this off the off screen here and seeing if maybe it'll work because I'm not super well voiced on this. If I do this here and then we're just
Oh
gonna put that
man.
up. We're gonna put that up. We're gonna move
What?
right into the reverse retro jerseys from this year that have been released. I have like a full tier list that I did previously. So this is all 32 teams. Do you have a couple favorites that you tell you what, share with me like your top 3 and maybe your bottom 3 that you just want to throw in the trash can and burn.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple that I really like. I think it's pretty easy for me though. The ones that I love, St. Louis, I really enjoy. I think they never miss on their jerseys. They blend everything perfectly together. It's nice and subtle, but they have enough history as well. Where they can play with stuff a lot. So I love those. I love the Bruins. I love that dorky little Pooh Bear head. And I love the Fishermen, the Islanders. I think
Mhm.
those are probably my top 3. A couple of the old school ones I didn't like that much. The Capitals. I love that old logo. I just don't know if they did it correctly. I personally uh, really don't like the Wilds. Um,
Really?
I don't I just don't think that logo meshes well with the colors of the North Stars, and I'm under the impression that the North Stars are not Minnesota Wild history. So why are you trying to force that into it when they're more so Dallas's history, even though it wasn't Minnesota? Like I understand it, but I would just love to see like the old forest green come back or something like that with like the Marion Gabrick one with like that gold in it and stuff
Mhm.
like that. That's what I would love to see, but I've never really liked the colors with there. I think there needs to be some black and whatnot. That kind of went a little further there just because it is about the Wild. So not a fan of theirs. It's just kind of in the middle for me.
Yeah.
If we're touching on it, it's just kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, it's the opposite of the one from last year.
Yeah.
But Calgary, who I typically like their jerseys, I don't know what they did there.
I
um,
th it's
it,
it's weird, and I don't wanna cut you off here, but what
yeah,
I'm still confused as to what the front, like, trim is. It looks like it
yeah.
looks like me out of the shower when I tuck my towel in to, wear it up. It seems like they just had something, then they're, like, tucking it in the front. Like, wha I don't understand, like, this sachet look. Just go with a clean stripe around the bottom because that would make it look maybe at least in like middle tier for me, but it's just that trim that I can't get past it. It's so bad.
Yeah, and it sucks because they just hit it on the head last year with the I forget what they call that guy, the fire horse or
Yeah,
whatever
like
he is.
the
Like,
flame stallion or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just gorgeous jerseys. Like brings you back to the Jerome McGinley days. But
Mhm.
yeah, I'm not quite sure what they're doing there. And I gotta say, Detroit and Chicago, like,
Oof.
I get that you're going back to your roots, but like maybe go a little bit more recently because it's just lines, like what are we doing there? I don't quite get it. Like Chicago at least has the emblem on the shoulder,
Mhm.
but like Detroit is literally just it just says Detroit with a couple black lines on it.
It's it's bad, and this is something that I saw with like the US men's national soccer team for their World Cup jerseys. If I can go into the comments of you announcing your jersey and within 5 seconds find a fan concept that's like a million times better, that's when you know you messed up. Because yeah, I don't get it. Because I saw the same with Detroit. I went to the comments and some guy was like, "How about this?" And he changed the black to white and then like kind of tinkered with the font, and it was a lot better. It was so much better. Chicago's it's just bad. It's just flat out bad. I just don't like it. Um, the f- the one I think is easy to maybe just rag on because it's them, the Maple Leafs. It's their home jersey. That is
Right.
that is their home jersey. They did nothing. They they maybe like added a smidge more white on the shoulders and were like, all right, guys, ship it out. Let's go print them. Like I don't get it. Like it's just so boring. The couple that I liked, I had the I was a little let down with the Wilds just because it's a flop of last year. It's the exact opposite.
Mhm.
I can't feel like I can't like it, but I just don't love it.
Mhm.
Maybe because the white last year just made it look a little bit cleaner. But
Right.
like the top tier ones, I like the Sharks. I like the Sharks a lot. That
Mhm.
homage to the Seals, the Golden Seals back in the day, it just looks so good. Like that's something that I could see people it's gonna look good on the ice. I hope they don't do white breezers like a lot of teams I've seen opt for with these. But it also looks like one that similar to like what the Kings do. They just get people to wear it casually. Like I could see somebody
Right.
wearing that like just walking around. So that's it's like style wise, it also looks pretty good. Same thing with the Kings.
That's a good way to put it. That's a good
Yeah,
way to put it.
like I could see it other than right there. Like I that's the thing that I feel like the NHL maybe just doesn't have as much success at maybe because of how much they are too. But like I see people wear basketball and baseball jerseys everywhere, like just
Yep.
so often, like casually out. And maybe it's because they're long sleeve and that's why. But I just don't see that many people rocking like a Wild jersey casually when they're out doing whatever.
Right.
And maybe that's just the issue, but I could see that. Same thing with the Kings jersey. It's just so it's so good. It's so
It
good. That
is.
purple and the gold with the crown logo. It's amazing. Um, one more that I absolutely love is the Johnny Canuck, the Vancouver, and I don't
Yes.
know your thoughts, but I
I
just
love it
love
too.
that like the it's a deeper navy than they usually do. And who is it? I think it's Jay on TSN, one of the guys. He's
Yeah.
like, what's like the orca that they have? It really doesn't make sense, but because that's really all I've known from them, I didn't know the skate logo, and I kind of knew the hockey stick oval thing, but that was more like a third jersey. But I've just accepted that the orca is what they are. But that's not a Canuck. I think of like a Canuck is just it's a Canadian guy and a Canadian lumberjack looking guy skating around out like that is what they are. Um the only thing I've seen people not like is the chest numbers. I
I
kind of
love
love it.
it.
I
I
kind of
love
love
it.
it. It adds that it adds that like retro look to it. It's like a vintage looking I don't know. It just works so well. I
Mhm.
like it a lot. One sleeper for me that I think actually works really well is the Pooh Bear with the Bruins.
Yep.
If you can make brown, just flat out brown, look that good, you did something right. So I like that one a lot.
I love that. I love that analogy. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like it is what it is. I'm not a huge fan of the reverse retro concept in the first place. I don't really understand meshing the old with like the new. I'd rather
Yeah.
just have a new jersey and like an old jersey. But once again, it's somehow these NHL bigwigs are getting paid the big bucks to create these things. Like you were saying, like someone who just got paid, over $1 million looked at the Maple Leafs jersey and they're like, I got it. A little bit more white. And then I know you're gonna like it, and it's really gonna pop off.
Like the thing that I feel like about that too is just some franchises some franchises are just such a disadvantage. What is Seattle supposed to do?
Yeah.
What is Vegas supposed to do? They they've been here for a cup of coffee. Like credit to them.
And
I
theirs
don't
are pretty nice,
I
you
don't
know?
necessarily love either of them, but they're a hell of a lot better than like what we said. Like Calgary, what are you doing? Detroit, what are we doing here? Seattle,
Buffaloes are horrendous, I think.
you don't like Buffalo.
I love the old school logo and, shout out North Branch Vikings because that's the color concept of the socks and the jerseys that we use
Mhm.
was that old school red, gray, black, and white.
Okay.
But it once again with the Wild, it's not necessarily the logo or the style of the jersey. I just don't think the colors go well with the logo. And maybe it's because I've seen them with different colors and
Mhm.
my brain just can't quite comprehend that. But yeah, I'm not a fan of just throwing the current jersey color with like the old jersey, you know?
Yeah. So there's two things before we kind of maybe wrap up here that I gotta get your opinion on. One, I need to know what your thoughts are on Nashville's because personally, I hate everything about it. The yellow is not great. The logo looks cartoony. I don't like that they just put Nashville as like a block like stamp right above it in the middle of the chest. It's everything in like it's a bad yellow, but then there's like no trim to break that up. Like other teams, even if you look at like the Wild or what the Canucks did, they have like thick striping on the bottom. So it kind of takes away to where it's like 2/3 of the jersey. That like disgusting mustard expired yellow is 90% of the jersey, and I hate everything about it.
You said two of the things that I have thought about since I've seen them. The mustard is just it's not it. It's
No.
that's not the yellow that you need. And the Nashville in between the logo and the crest or like the collar is just it's just strange to me. Personally, I know it's like they have to use certain things and there's like there's a structure to it, right? You can't just create like any jersey you want to, but I love those old school like Martin Erat like silk ones that they used to wear, if you know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes, absolutely.
Like
Yes.
I wish they would go back to something like that. I don't know where did this mustard color come from?
I don't know.
Like because
It's
it
so
yeah, I don't know. So that's kind of I don't like them as well. I did want to get your opinion on one of them that we haven't talked about yet.
yeah.
Florida Panthers.
I gotta pull. I'm pretty sure I know where I had this in my. I ha, let me see if I can just share this really quick.
Because I feel like this is the one while you're looking. I think this is the one where it's like, where the hell did this come from? Like it's just such a kind of random jersey concept, but it kind of works. But then you're also kind of like, what's going on here?
Let's see here. When they first announced these, I made a tier list. So I'm gonna put it up on the screen right now. But this was my official rankings. If this switches over here, there we go. I had it S tier. I like it a lot. I
Well,
think
what does S stand for?
S is so that's like super. That's like it's the
Okay,
best.
that's beyond.
Top
Okay.
tier. Yeah. So A is really good. I just don't like the Wild. I think it's good. I think it's better than most of the other ones. It's not the best. It didn't like wow me. I got that like kind of like I got that weird tingle of excitement when I saw the Kings and when I saw the Sharks and when I saw the
Mhm,
Canucks. When I
mhm,
saw the Ducks, I was like, "Oh, that's just so good."
mhm,
The one I hesitated on, and I know it's like not it's in from the Ducks a little bit, but I moved that one like 7 times between S and A. But I like it. I like it a lot. It's
mhm.
fresh. Um, I don't usually like that tertiary logo that they have on their shoulder because that's what it is. But for some reason, seeing it on the chest, fully blown up in with like that baby blue powder blue,
Mhm.
it works. I don't know what it just works. I like
Yeah.
it. It's in I can definitely understand where other people are saying they don't like it because it's that one's more like art in my like
Mhm.
it really depends on just the person you are. Like there's some where if you say you don't like the Kings one, I just don't respect your opinion. But
Right,
if you
right.
say you don't like the Florida one, I can understand it. I
Yeah.
can see why you don't like it because it's not for everyone, but I do like it a lot.
I love that. I love to hear that, and it's crazy because the more you look at it, the more I see it's just such a Florida jersey, and I feel like the NHL needs to transition a little bit to that.
Yeah.
Like you said, like basketball, like baseball, like some of these other sports that we have here. Like the Wild are just so base, or not the Wild, I'm sorry. The NHL is just so based on um the past and the history of the game, but they just neglect right now and the future and where it's going. And I think we're starting to see a transition there. And I think Florida is just a perfect example of that there.
Yeah. This has given me an actually really great idea for future shows. I don't know. I might save it as a surprise for next episode, just to like spring it on you in the heat of the moment. But I think you're gonna like it. It's gonna be a fun segment. And we'll have to see. We'll have to see. But it'll be fun. So next week, episode 3, we'll have that ready to go.
Love it.
All right. Any final words before we part ways here this week?
I don't think we've talked about him too much other than a couple things, but Mason Shaw,
Yeah.
looking like a player. He kind of reminds me of like a Andrew Shaw light, just someone that you kind of a mud out there. Like you hate to play against, is smaller in stature, but he's really impressed in a very short amount of time, and it makes me happy because I know every season it seems like he's having a torn something.
Yes.
Poor guy. I can't imagine what that's like. So to see him overcome that is pretty cool, and to see him succeeding is pretty awesome.
Yeah. And I think maybe part of it that goes into it too with him is he knows whatever time he gets out there is probably limited because he's
Mhm.
not a guy that's just penciled in like chalk every night. He knows, look, I gotta earn my minutes. So when he's out there defending a guy like Marco Rossi, throwing the body on Slavkovsky in the final few minutes against the Canadians, he's fine to, take a couple uppercuts just for the sake of maybe I'll get another shift next game. Maybe I'll do whatever. And
Mhm.
he's earning that reputation in the locker room. So he knows every night, like, hey, this potentially, if things just like all of a sudden those guys get healthy, I may not see the ice again in the show for another like maybe week, month, or until somebody else gets hurt. So I respect that for sure. Like he's not gonna wow you, I don't think, with maybe his individual skill and stuff like that. But in terms of the character and just like the effort, I think that I see from him each shift, he's leaving it out there every single night, every single shift, every single second. So a fun guy to watch. And I think
Mhm.
the fans, from what I've seen, are noticing maybe how much work he's putting in because he's doing the little things. Like he's not just back checking and throwing guys off. He's like I said, he's stepping in to defend a guy, or he's dropping the mitts if he needs to with a guy who's 5 inches taller than him. He's doing kind of everything, and I really respect him for it.
I love that. I love that. I don't know. I mean, I know that you're tapped into wild Twitter, especially. But there was a comparison that someone was trying to make, and it was with Mason Shaw and Braden Point. And I was like,
That's
that,
interesting.
like, I saw a couple graphs, and I won't say, who it was or anything, but don't expect that.
Yeah,
Fans, like you were saying, like very different players. Like I get it, and that's very wishful thinking and optimistic, which I love that. We need more of that in
yeah,
life these
hmm
days. But I think what you're seeing right now is just perfect. Just keep doing what you're doing,
yeah.
Mason Shaw.
He seems like a guy like he knows his role and he's fine in that role and he plays that role well. Don't if you're the background tree in the musical and you have a line that makes the crowd laugh and you nail it out, you knock it out of the park every time. Don't all of a sudden cut to the front and take the solo.
Yeah.
Stay the tree. Be the
Yep.
tree. You don't need to be the lead every time.
Yeah.
I every play needs a tree. So every team needs a Mason Shaw. But yeah, that's I think that'll do it for episode 2 here of Another Wild Podcast. That has been Jake Jensen. I've been AJ Fredrickson. Maybe now we'll be a little more consistent about week to week, depending on how everybody's schedules go. I know stuff can pop up kind of out of nowhere. So we'll have to see, but we'll plan to get another episode out maybe sometime next week and keep the party rolling till then. So Jake, have a good week. I'll talk to you then, man.
All right, you too, buddy.